Hey guys, it's Phil with Gun Owners of America. On today's video, we're going to talk about big tech and why it's related to the Second Amendment. I think what's most important for us all to remember is that we at GOA can't get our message out to all of you if it's being throttled by these giant companies. We can't ask you to call your senator, call your congressman if the message just isn't getting out. I mean, you guys are our backup here in Washington. So that's probably the most immediate concern. There's a second concern, and that is the fight for gun rights takes on a different tone when there's a strong gun culture in America. We've talked over and over again on this channel about the importance of a good gun culture in America. You guys can't spread the message with your videos, social media posts. You can't follow your favorite creators if no one's out there being heard. So today's video is sort of looking at the fight for gun rights in a big picture, getting our message out there to everyone, all of you, and bringing in new people to help them understand the nature of the Second Amendment. So I hope you enjoy it. We want real solutions with censorship that's happening on social media. I mean, just look at these posts and headlines. If you think this is the end, you're not paying attention. This isn't something that's going to go away if we wait it out or just comply a little more. This censorship is here to stay unless we fight back. I actually mentioned in a previous IG post that I'm not opposed to creating our own networks where we can post our content without fear of reprisal or censorship. I personally think that it makes us stronger as a community to know we have a network of people who support us and share our views. But I also want to be sure that our views are part of the larger conversation. I want to attract new people. Frankly, I want it all. But what I don't want is fake solutions to real problems. And so with that, I want to break down an article written by a colleague of mine, Rachel Bovard, on one of the many fake solutions to what is maybe the defining issue of this generation. Congressman Dan Crenshaw of Texas plans to introduce a Section 230 reform bill. And here's some history. According to Rachel, Section 230 provides sweeping legal immunity from third-party content to internet platforms. And that Section 230 was essentially created to solve the moderator's dilemma. How do you incentivize companies to remove the smutty, harassing, and tawdry content that no one wants to see without making them liable? Basically, these big platforms are shielded from liability and are not responsible for what their users post. They are encouraged to remove offensive content in good faith without being subject to liability. That liability extends, for example, to potentially illegal materials that the platforms would have to make a judgment call on whether or not to take down or keep up. According to Rachel, while Section 230 doesn't give companies the right to censor, the law privileges their ability to wield their speech powers without the same consequences that would befall a newspaper or a movie studio. Congressman Crenshaw decided to go public with his working draft for his Section 230 reform bill after Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene was permabanned on Twitter. In a weird move, he decided to dunk on his colleague for getting banned by saying, instead of playing the victim about censorship, maybe use your position as a legislator to help pass legislation against censorship. Luckily, I've already done all the hard work for you and drafted a bill that would change Section 230 to prohibit political censorship. Okay, as we've done so many times before on this show, let's break down this article and the legislation to give you, the viewer, a better sense of what this legislation would and would not do. First, and this gives you a sense of how Washington works more than anything, Rachel points out that according to the document file path posted by Crenshaw, there's a good chance that this legislation wasn't even drafted by him, and instead was drafted in full or in part by the House Energy and Commerce Committee and not Crenshaw himself. So much for doing all the hard work. Moving on, the bill's key section eliminates Section 230's exception that platforms that discriminate on the basis of racial, sexual, political affiliation, or ethnic grounds. All this would do is take away a platform's incentive to remove things from their sites, like, let's say, lewd materials, which, believe it or not, actually includes virtual child pornography, which apparently is legal. This would undermine the central purpose of Section 230, according to Rachel, which was to clean up the internet. Then there's this. Under Section 201 of the bill, political censorship would still be allowed if the policies are disclosed. That is, if platforms disclose in advance their criteria for banning users and content, which no one reads anyway, they have the full license to do it. And Rachel brings up the very obvious point that these terms of service are always written in a very vague way. They're not just going to come out and say they're banning people based on racial, sexual, political affiliation, or ethnic grounds. And so in the case of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, she would still be banned under this legislation. Twitter's just saying that she violated a term of service related to COVID-19 misinformation. Heck, the guys are so good, they'll just make a catch-all like threat to democracy. Do you, as a gun owner or liberty-minded American, feel comforted by what you're seeing so far? This doesn't solve our problems. We need serious solutions, and this isn't it. All of your favorite content creators, political leaders, authors, reporters, anyone you follow for Second Amendment-related news, or just information in general, is still going to be subject to permabans and harassment by big tech under this bill and bills like it. With respect to his legislative work, Congressman Crenshaw thinks that he is the serious legislator and Congresswoman Greene is unserious, even though it was Congresswoman Greene that exposed the lie that got the ball rolling to make sure that all members of Congress were forced to go on the record for the bills that they actually support. If you want a little bit more background on that, you should check out her recent appearance on the Tim Pool podcast, because I think she did a really great job of breaking it down there. So let's take a look at another part of Rachel's article. She notes that the bill relies on the Federal Trade Commission to enforce the provisions outlined in this bill. But this commission is clearly not free of any bias. How do you, a gun owner, an influencer, feel about that? Does it give you a lot of good vibes, knowing that the Federal Trade Commission is going to be the one defending you when these outlets crush your page or censor people you follow? And even the workaround to the Federal Trade Commission written into the bill doesn't do much for anyone. The bill says that the state attorneys general can start a lawsuit against the platform. But his bill lets the FTC put a pause on those lawsuits. So you can't even rely on a little bit of relief from your state AG if you can get them to care about your ban in the first place. And here's one more little nugget of information for you. The bill won't even let you rely on your own state to pass laws to protect you. That's because the Crenshaw bill would preempt all state social media regulation, such as the bills passed recently in Texas and Florida. This is the serious work he was dunking on MTG over? This supposedly is the kind of work that separates the people who play victim from the serious legislators who want to get work done? I've seen less rot in an Opalaka fruit stand. Today's breakdown is less about Congressman Crenshaw and more about all of us needing to have a discussion about the solutions that need to come next. The people you watch on YouTube, for instance, and follow on social media sites don't deserve to have their pages banned because their politics or understanding of the true meaning of the Second Amendment makes the tech crowd uncomfortable. If we're going to win, we can't allow half measures and dated ideas to take the place of positive change that protects us from these new oligarchs. So that's it for this week's Minuteman Moment. I'll see you next time.